Aaron Goodwin was once the comic relief of ghost adventures. The nervous laugh, the wide-eyed reactions, the guy fans could see themselves in. But behind the laughter, his life spiraled into something darker than any haunted asylum. He fought crippling anxiety, lost relationships, and carried scars from years of isolation in ghost-ridden prisons. Just when it seemed he found love and stability, the biggest betrayal of his life nearly ended it all. By the end of this story, one truth becomes clear. Aaron's darkest demon was never a ghost. It was the person he trusted most. Before the haunted houses, the screaming fans, and the glow of night vision cameras, Aaron Goodwin was just a kid growing up in Portland, Oregon. Unlike Zach Bagans, who seemed destined to dive headfirst into the world of the supernatural, Aaron's early passions had nothing to do with spirits or shadows. He was drawn to art, to sketching, to photography, to making people laugh. Humor was his safety net. If life got too heavy, Aaron cracked a joke. If he felt nervous, he turned that anxiety into laughter. Friends described him as quirky, lighthearted, and a little offbeat, but that was his charm. Growing up, Aaron never fit the mold of a paranormal investigator in training. He wasn't obsessed with ghost stories or horror films. Instead, he loved technology and filmmaking, spending hours behind cameras, fascinated by how moments could be captured and replayed. That passion carried into his young adulthood, when he began chasing creative projects wherever he could. For Aaron, the dream wasn't to become a television star. It was simply to work in production, to build a life around the camera. But like so many lives that take unexpected turns, Aaron's path shifted in ways he never could have predicted. The quiet kid from Portland, who never imagined himself standing in front of millions of viewers, was unknowingly preparing for a role that would make him a household name. It wouldn't come through Hollywood auditions or polished studio productions. Instead, it would come from being thrown into the darkness. Literally, what set Aaron apart, even in those early days, was his authenticity. He wasn't the most confident, he wasn't the loudest, and he wasn't the guy who demanded the spotlight. He was the relatable one, the man who wore his nerves on his sleeve. That honesty, that transparency, would later make him beloved by fans across the world. But it would also make him vulnerable, because when the laughs stopped and when the cameras turned off, the weight of those vulnerabilities became much harder to escape. For Aaron, the seeds of his tragic lifestyle were planted long before the first episode of Ghost Adventures ever aired. By 2008, the world of paranormal television was shifting. The days of calm, measured investigations were fading, and audiences craved something raw, something that felt real. That's when Zach Bagans assembled a crew for what would become Ghost Adventures. He needed a cameraman, someone willing to lug equipment into the most unsettling places on Earth, someone who could keep up with the long nights and the chaos of unscripted exploration. Enter Aaron Goodwin. At first, Aaron wasn't meant to be the star. He was hired for his skills with a camera, not his on-screen presence. His job was simple: capture Zach's bravado, film Nick Groff's steady composure, and stay out of the spotlight. But fate had other plans. Almost immediately, Aaron's personality began to seep through the edges of the screen. While Zach charged headlong into haunted hallways, shouting challenges at unseen entities, Aaron was the opposite: nervous, hesitant, jumping at every sound, muttering "dude" under his breath as he tried to summon courage. Audiences loved it. Viewers saw themselves in Aaron. He wasn't fearless, and he didn't pretend to be. When a door creaked open or a whisper floated through the static, Aaron's wide-eyed terror mirrored exactly what most people would feel. He was authentic in a way television rarely allowed. Slowly, he began stepping out from behind the camera and into the narrative itself. No longer just documenting the show, he became part of it. Fans started tuning in, not just to see what ghosts might appear, but to see how Aaron would react when they did. But this relatability came with a darker side, because while audiences laughed at his nervousness, for Aaron, it was real fear. Zach often singled him out for solo lockdowns, sending him into the darkest basements and most terrifying rooms alone. For the show, it was brilliant. It made for unforgettable television. But for Aaron, it was terrifying isolation. Each time he was shoved into the shadows by himself, he carried something back with him, something heavier than fans realized. In those first seasons, seasons, Aaron went from being just the cameraman to being an essential part of the Ghost Adventures machine. He was beloved, yes, but he was also being molded into a role he hadn't signed up for, the bait for the supernatural, the man the spirits seemed to target. And while that made for good TV, it also set Aaron on a path toward a life where fear was no longer a performance. It was his daily reality. As Ghost Adventures exploded into one of the most recognizable paranormal shows in the world, Aaron Goodwin found himself caught in a strange paradox. On one hand, he was becoming a fan favorite, adored by millions for his honesty and nervous charm. On the other, he was living in constant fear, thrown into situations most people would do anything to avoid. While Zach Bagans projected the image of the fearless leader, confrontational, bold, daring, Aaron was cast as the man who reacted with raw, unfiltered emotion. It worked perfectly on screen. Audiences loved the balance, but behind the camera, Aaron was carrying a weight far heavier than any piece of equipment he lugged into abandoned asylums. Time and again, Zach would send him into the most terrifying spots. Alone, a basement where prisoners once took their last breath, an attic where families claimed demonic entities lurked, or cells where murderers had spent their final days. Fans called it bravery, but Aaron often admitted it wasn't bravery at all. It was survival. He had no choice. This was his job, and millions of viewers were watching. What began as entertainment for fans quickly became a personal torment for Aaron. The Bobby Mackey's Music World episode cemented this. To this day, fans recall the look on Aaron's face when he claimed something dark had attached itself to him. He wasn't acting, his voice trembled, his eyes darted, his entire body language screamed fear. And unlike Zach, who often leaned into the role of the fearless provoker, Aaron carried that moment with him long after the cameras stopped rolling. It became a recurring theme. Aaron wasn't just documenting hauntings, he was living them. What made Aaron so beloved was also what made his life increasingly tragic. His authenticity drew fans closer, but it also left him vulnerable to the very darkness the crew was chasing. Each season blurred the line between performance and reality. And while Zach's persona grew into a brand, Aaron was quietly deteriorating. Ghost Adventures gave him fame, but it also trapped him inside a role he could never truly escape. The comic relief was, in truth, a man being eaten alive by the shadows he was forced to face. Television glamorized the thrill of ghost hunting, but the reality for Aaron Goodwin was anything but glamorous. Years of overnight lockdowns, endless travel, and chaotic schedules left his body broken down. Fans noticed the changes slowly, but Aaron himself was living it every single day. At his worst, he admitted to sitting for 15 hours at a time editing projects, fueled by sugary coffee drinks and junk food, his only way to push through the exhaustion. The toll was visible. His weight skyrocketed to 254 pounds, his energy drained, his confidence fading with every season. For someone who had once been active and lean, the transformation was devastating. Fans commented on his appearance, some with support, others with cruel criticism. But what they didn't see was the man behind the image, a man who was slowly drowning under the pressures of constant filming and the psychological stress of his work. The late nights, the isolation, the adrenaline spikes followed by crushing crashes, it all built a lifestyle that was destroying him from the inside out. But Aaron wasn't the type to quietly surrender. Determined to reclaim control over his body, he launched himself into a complete transformation. He eliminated sugar, cut out fried foods, and forced himself into a regimen of water, organic meals, and discipline. The results were shocking. Over time, Aaron shed more than 50 pounds, dropping to a lean 197. His before and after photos circulated across fan pages, celebrated as proof of resilience. But while the weight loss made headlines, it didn't erase the deeper truth. Aaron was healthier, yes, but he was still immersed in an environment designed to tear him down. Every investigation, every lockdown, every whisper in the dark chipped away at his spirit. His body had transformed, but his mind remained under siege. For fans, his physical comeback was inspirational. For Aaron, it was survival. The problem was, you can rebuild a body, but repairing a haunted soul is far more complicated. If Aaron Goodwin's physical transformation showed his strength, his mental battles revealed his fragility. Years of immersing himself in haunted prisons, abandoned hospitals, and murder houses had taken a toll that no diet or gym routine could repair. Behind the nervous laughter and exaggerated reactions fans adored was a man quietly unraveling. Anxiety became his constant shadow. He admitted to suffering panic attacks, one of which was captured on camera during a notorious lockdown. For someone who had built his image as the comic relief of ghost adventures, the sight of Aaron breaking down was jarring. Fans expected fear. They didn't expect collapse. What audiences often missed was that Aaron never left the fear behind. When the lights turned off and the cameras were packed away, the sense of dread came home with him. He spoke of restless nights filled with paranoia, waking up with the feeling that something dark was still lurking nearby. Sometimes he claimed he could hear whispers in his own house, or feel the sensation of being watched. Whether it was psychological trauma or something supernatural, Aaron was living in a constant state of unease. Unlike Zach Bagans, who leaned into the role of the fearless instigator, Aaron didn't hide the fact that he was terrified. That honesty endeared him to fans, but it also made his suffering more visible. His anxiety wasn't just part of the show. It was real, gnawing, and relentless. And over time, it became clear that the toll wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. Aaron started to believe that attachments had followed him from investigations, dark entities feeding off his fear. He once confessed that he didn't just feel haunted at work, he felt haunted at home. The tragedy was that Aaron's vulnerability became the very thing that made him invaluable to the show. His reactions, his unease, his authenticity, it was all gripping television. But it also meant he was being slowly consumed by the very content fans tuned in for. Each season demanded more lockdowns, more solo vigils, more moments of terror, and Aaron, trapped by loyalty to the crew and the expectations of millions, kept going, even when it broke him inside. The life of a television star often seems glamorous to outsiders, but for Aaron Goodwin, fame came with isolation. While fans watched him confront spirits in haunted buildings, his personal life was quietly falling apart. The relentless travel schedule of ghost adventures meant weeks away from home, birthdays missed, and holidays spent in cold hotel rooms. His family, still back in Portland, grew accustomed to seeing him less and less. Old friendships drifted, replaced by fleeting bonds with crew members and colleagues. Aaron's surrogate family became the team, but even that came with complications. On screen, Zach Bagans often pushed Aaron into the darkest corners, assigning him to basements and locked rooms alone. For fans, it was thrilling. For Aaron, it was isolating. Over time, those moments left him questioning his role. Was he truly valued as an investigator, or was he the expendable one, the bait for spirits, sacrificed for good television? Privately, he admitted the strain wore him down. His romantic relationships fared no better. Women struggled to accept his constant absences, the late-night flights, and the whispers of danger surrounding his career. More troubling were Aaron's own fears that entities had latched onto him and followed him home. He once suggested that his dating life was cursed, intimacy strained by the sense that a third, unseen presence was always in the room. Trying to build trust while feeling haunted was nearly impossible. Over time, loneliness became his silent companion. Fans saw the joking, light-hearted Aaron, the guy who made awkward faces in the dark and muttered "dude" under his breath. But off camera, he wrestled with solitude. His sacrifices piled up, the friendships that faded, the family milestones missed, the relationships that crumbled. Each one chipped away at his optimism. The show gave him fame, but at a steep cost, peace of mind and the chance at a normal life. Aaron often reassured himself that the sacrifices were worth it, that fans needed him, that the work mattered. But in his quietest moments, he admitted the truth. He was running on fumes, haunted not just by spirits, but by the realization that the life he built left little room for lasting happiness. For years, Aaron Goodwin's life looked like a cycle of airports, haunted prisons, and lonely hotel rooms. But in 2019, something shifted. After years of fleeting relationships, Aaron met Victoria, a woman who seemed to understand the chaos of his world. Unlike others who struggled with his relentless schedule and the rumors of spirits following him home, she accepted it. She embraced it. Where others pulled away, she leaned in. For Aaron, it was like a lifeline. Their relationship quickly grew serious. Victoria faced her own struggles, including health issues that would have driven many people into bitterness. But Aaron admired her resilience. He often said her strength inspired him, that she gave him hope he could finally build the stability he had long sacrificed. And in October 2019, he made it official. At Disneyland, in front of the glittering castle, Aaron dropped to one knee and proposed. Fans cheered online when photos of the moment surfaced. The haunted jokester of ghost adventures had finally found happiness. In August 2022, they married. Fittingly, the ceremony wasn't in a traditional chapel, but at Disneyland's Haunted Mansion ride. It was eerie, theatrical, and uniquely Aaron. Photos showed him beaming, his smile wide, his arm wrapped around Victoria, as if he had finally found the anchor to steady him. Fans celebrated the union, calling it the fairy tale ending for the man who had spent his life surrounded by nightmares. For a while, it seemed true. They built a home together in Las Vegas, adopting pets and settling into a domestic life that looked ordinary and happy from the outside. In October 2024, they took in a stray kitten that refused to leave their yard. Aaron posted about it online, calling the cat "our new little fur baby." To fans, these moments were proof that the haunted ghost hunter had finally found peace. But behind the photos and smiles, cracks were forming. The constant travel that had destroyed his past relationships was still present. Victoria, dealing with her own battles, began to show signs of discontent. The picture-perfect marriage was more fragile than anyone realized. And while Aaron thought he had finally escaped the loneliness that haunted him, what he didn't know was that the greatest horror of his life was already brewing. Not inside a haunted asylum, not in a cursed object, but inside his own home. By late 2023, the fairy tale had begun to unravel. To fans scrolling through Instagram, Aaron and Victoria still looked blissfully happy. Smiling selfies, pets curled on their laps, the glow of Disneyland memories. But beneath the surface, the foundation was cracking. Victoria grew restless. Aaron's filming schedule meant weeks apart, and when he returned home, the tension between them was heavy. While he believed they were working through ordinary marital struggles, she was quietly stepping into something far darker. In early 2024, Victoria began corresponding with Grant Amato, a convicted murderer serving life in a Florida prison for killing his family. How she discovered him was unsettling enough through a true crime documentary featuring his case, but what followed defied logic. Their letters turned into phone calls, and the relationship evolved into something disturbingly intimate. She confided in him about her frustrations with Aaron, painting herself as trapped and unhappy. Instead of pushing her toward counseling or divorce, Amato encouraged something unthinkable. Together, they concocted a plan to erase Aaron completely. Court documents later revealed that Victoria provided Amato with intimate details: Aaron's filming schedule, the hotels where he stayed, even his routines when traveling alone. The conversations grew colder, more calculated. In one exchange, she chillingly asked, "Am I a bad person because I chose to end his existence, not divorce him?" The plot was horrifying in its precision. Victoria allegedly agreed to pay more than $11,500 to arrange Aaron's murder. On October 15, 2024, while Aaron was asleep in a California hotel during a lockdown shoot, Amato texted an accomplice to check whether the job had been done. Unbeknownst to Aaron, the danger wasn't supernatural, it was human, but fate intervened. Prison officials uncovered Amato's smuggled cell phone, and investigators pieced together the murder-for-hire scheme before it could be carried out. In March 2025, Victoria Victoria was arrested. For Aaron, the news was devastating. The woman he had married in front of friends and family, the person he believed was his salvation, had plotted his death with a convicted killer. Fans who had once celebrated his wedding now watched in shock as headlines painted a chilling picture. Aaron Goodwin, the ghost hunter who had faced demons for decades, had nearly been destroyed not by spirits, but by the person he trusted most. The betrayal was deeper than any haunting. It was a nightmare no exorcism could ever erase. In June 2025, Aaron Goodwin faced the most painful confrontation of his life. Inside a Las Vegas courtroom, he looked across at Victoria, the woman he had once called his soulmate, now shackled in prison garb. When it was his turn to speak, his voice cracked as he told the judge, 7 years of love and trust reduced to ash. She didn't just betray me, she tried to erase me. He described sleepless nights, paranoia, and the armed guards he hired just to feel safe. Victoria wept, but Aaron didn't believe her tears. The judge sentenced her to 36 to 90 months, a punishment Aaron felt could never match the depth of betrayal. Returning home, he found no closure. His house, once filled with love, now felt haunted by memories of deception. Therapy offered some relief, and fans rallied behind him, but Aaron admitted the scars remain. For the man who spent his life chasing shadows, the darkest ghost he ever faced wasn't in a haunted asylum, it wore a wedding ring.